In this add-on, we're going to go over a couple of different types of projects that you might work on. As you can see on the left side, we have responsive website, mobile app, tablet app, wearable app, and web app. And the first three videos are connected to the responsive website. Why three? Because we're going to be working on three different devices that this website might be opened up on. One of them is the mobile, the other one is a tablet, and the third one is a desktop responsive website. So what we want to do is first we want to go over the brief. As you can see, we need to design a single page responsive website for doggy daycare. And the company is based in California. The main goal of the website is to win over the dog owners interested in finding a daycare nearby by presenting the main selling points. So we need to actually use the website to present the daycare to ensure that it's different enough for people to see the benefit of enrolling in this one versus all of the other ones. And we need to have a way for people to actually sign up. So now that we know those things, we need to first decide, is it better to start this responsive project by working on mobile first or desktop first? Now, when it comes to that, it's important to kind of think about the context of use. We know that these people are in California. We know that they most likely have a really good internet connection. We know that they have pets, and most likely they're busy during the day because they need to have someone else look after their dog. So all of those guesses or assumptions based on the users can lead us to deciding, does it seem more likely that more people are going to be visiting from mobile or from desktop? And since it's a simple responsive one-pager that we're designing, it might not make too much of a difference what our approach is. But knowing how many people actually use phones these days, and that most often in websites like this, the visits are going to come more from mobile than desktop. And you can see different trends on different industries and types of websites to figure out if it seems more likely that your product is going to be visited more from desktop or mobile. But knowing all of these things, we can basically say that it's very likely that more people are going to be visiting on their phones than they are on the desktop. So to start off this project, we're going to work on mobile first and then to desktop. As you can see, I went to our UI Basics kit. I copied all of the frames that we have for our responsive website, and I focused on our mobile one. Now, knowing that this is going to be a website that's going to be a lot visual, I wanted to give more space on the left and right margin, and I knew that I don't really need 12 columns for this project, so I just kind of edited that. So yeah, I made the margins on the left and right side bigger, and I also lowered the amount of columns that we have in this grid. And now I'm starting to work on the header. As you can see, I created a frame. Now I'm putting the logo in the frame. I'm aligning it with the grid. And the sizes that I'm using, you can easily pause for and see what I'm doing and why. The reason is, having worked on so many different products, I already have a really good guess on what I need to do to ensure that this is going to be a usable product, that some sizes are working correctly and that they're going to be good enough. So you can see that the size of this frame is 56 pixels of height, and I know that most times that's going to be enough for a mobile header. You might have noticed that I've added a shadow to this frame, but nothing happened, and that's because this frame didn't have a fill. Only objects that have a solid fill can actually throw a shadow, because otherwise this frame is fully transparent, so there's nothing that can cast a shadow. So you can see that I'm now gonna be adding a fill to it, and the shadow appeared. Because I have this as a top level item, I am thinking of the background color, but I'm also thinking about what's gonna be the main header visual. And you can see that in this file, Doggy Daycare Library, I do have a couple of photos. Unfortunately, I'm unable to share those as they were downloaded with our paid account on FreePic. but you might be able to download a couple of these illustrations below or the photos on the top by just signing up for FreePic, because they do have things that you can download easily for free. Or if you really want to recreate 100% of this, either try to find a similar photo on a free service like FreePic or Unsplash, or get a paid account for a month and kind of grab this asset. Unfortunately, we're unable to actually give you access to the illustrations below and the photos on the top, but you can easily see what kind of style and direction I was going with this, so you can easily find similar photos that are going to be free that you can use. I did try to kind of make this as easy to follow as possible, but I also wanted to ensure that I'm not just using something that wouldn't reflect my process of working on a real project. So I'm looking at a couple of photos and trying to figure out which one of these seems like it's going to work best for our project. And a similar thing may happen to you when you're working on a website, because a client is most likely going to be responsible for grabbing or giving you some assets. Or you're going to be the one who's going to go over to some stock websites and you're going to be grabbing an asset and then taking it into your design. So in here, I envision this as more of like, this is a really high-end company, so they're going to have access to high quality photos. As you can see, I was using a remove background plugin to remove the background from this photo. And now I'm trying to think of a good way to create an interesting header visual for this website. As you can see, I'm using the hard grid and the columns in here to kind of place items in hopefully a visually interesting way. And you've seen me place this on the main frame. I'm moving it to the background to ensure that the shadow is still noticeable, even if this is going to be a larger frame. And I'm trying to think of a way to actually have that overlap. So you can see in here, I did manage to get this dog to feel like it's still hitting the grid on this side of the screen. But I'm also trying to think of a way to kind of make it visually interesting by rounding some edges and also making parts of this main frame smaller than the frame that we have this photo on. So you can see now the dog is kind of overlapping everything, and it's kind of visually interesting. Besides that, I do want to make some kind of a element that I'm going to reuse in my designs quickly, that I can use for decorative purposes. So as you can see right now, I'm basically creating a really simple shape. So it's going to be a circle that has a stroke around it that I'm going to center around, and that's going to help me create an interesting shape behind this dog that's kind of playful and hopefully works well with the brand, and it's going to make everything just seem a little bit more modern and playful, which is basically the things that I wanted this website to communicate to the visitor. And you can see that, again, I can play around with overlapping elements in here to create something visually interesting. Another tip that I always have for designers who are starting out is try to grab an element from the logo, just like one shape like this, and use it as an element that you're going to use in your designs. So you can see that I grabbed like a part of the paw from the icon on the top, and now I'm going to use it as an element throughout my design that's going to kind of connect this playful shape with the actual logo, and that's going to score you some visual interest points and also make everything feel really tightly connected. Now, one of the reasons why I didn't immediately record myself like just talking as I was making all of these decisions is the fact that I'm continuously rethinking things. So as you're designing, just play around with things, experiment, try to figure out what works for you, why. Don't just fall in love with your first idea. And I know that that's going to be hard to replicate in videos like this, where I'm basically trying to give you the best tips and tricks that you can use while you're doing this for the first time. Because the process is so iterative, and you might change some things depending on like client feedback or user testing feedback. But overall, this should help you kind of understand what I'm thinking about and why. And as I've said, like one of the reasons why I didn't immediately record and I'm actually kind of voiceovering this is the fact that I'm making so many decisions, and you would just like see me go around in circles at some point where I'm exploring things and trying to think about them. And I don't think that you're really into looking at a video that's going to take you 5 hours just to see someone create a responsive landing page. So another thing that I really do care about, besides just iterating and kind of figuring out what works and what doesn't work, and that's going to be a subjective thing, but it's also going to be an objective thing, because your website and your product is going to have a purpose. It needs to solve something for a client and for the users. And that means that you really need to think about everything that's going to go in this particular website. From copy, from visuals, like all of those things need to communicate something, and it needs to be consistent. And as you're exploring, you're going to be making some changes. So you see that I went back to the doggy daycare library, and I've ended up kind of updating the font for a little bit, because the styles that I've created for myself in the beginning didn't just work with this style that I'm going for right now. So it's completely fine to go back, iterate, kind of change things, and adjust them to work better with your file. So you can see that now I've updated the font in here, and it's using a serif font. So not all of the ones are sans serif, and that's on purpose. I wanted to kind of create that contrast of like everything seems so playful. Will it feel too childish to a person who goes in here and maybe wants someone professional to take care of their dog? So I combined the sans serif font that instills trust with all of the playful elements that are going to make you feel like your pet is going to have fun and they're going to be loved there. So yeah, even though initially I was thinking of this entire project just using sans serif font, I decided to go against it once I actually saw these elements working together. So typography, the colors, the imagery that I'm using, all those things are influencing and communicating things, and I was feeling like this is going to feel too playful for people who are going to be using this site. And you can see right now that I'm also thinking about copy. If you're someone who's just starting out and you're really afraid of like writing things, and maybe you're a non-native speaker, usually the client is going to be the one who's going to help you provide the content for this product, especially on websites. But I do want to stress the importance of this skill. So like try working on it, try making it something that you really want to make better, because when you're designing, you always need to think about the content that's going to be there. Even if it's just a draft, like you can say, in here, I envision this talking about the main benefits of this daycare. That's completely fine, but just like keep that in place there. And if that feels a little bit uncomfortable, another thing that you can do is you can go on different competitor websites and use their copy when you're just testing things out and when you still don't have the realistic copy. That's going to help you kind of, even when you're testing, you're not going to have things like lorem ipsum, which is honestly the worst thing that you can do as a designer, UX UI designer, to keep lorem ipsum in your product. And here you can see that I was basically just using things that I've already made in the doggy daycare library that you do have access to. So as you're replicating this by following this video and kind of doing everything I'm doing, feel free to use the library to kind of speed up your work a little bit. Again, it's not perfect. It still needs to be adjusted as we're going to go through all of the other videos, but that's the process of how it is when you're actually working as a designer. So it's going to be really realistic for you. In here, you can see that I'm just adding like another trust factor to this. So besides just the copy ensuring visitors that this is a really good daycare, I'm also adding like a little shield in here that kind of represents security, and you know that you can trust this company because they have thousands of dog owners who trust them. So you know that you're not the only one, and it's not like your dog is going to be in care with a company that only has like 10 clients. You know that this is someone who's built a really big brand, and you can trust them. Again, if the brand that you're working with doesn't have something like that, try to think of something else that can really increase the sense of trust for your potential customers and users. And this is pretty much it when it comes to the header section. As I'm going to be building everything from mobile perspective first, I will switch things around, and like the tablet video and the desktop video, they're going to be a lot faster because you're just going to see me adjust all of the elements that I've created in here. But one thing that I'm really trying to do as I'm building this mobile website is also thinking of like, how do I need to ensure that this scales properly on a larger screen size? And that's going to take a little bit of like trying out. One thing that you can see in here, I'm using colors and a lot more colors as more of a decorative, playful element than they're signaling something. So when you're working on products like mobile applications and web applications, you're most likely going to have to assign a meaning to each color to ensure that it's working and communicating something to the user. While in here, when you're working on websites, you have a lot more flexibility. You can just use color as like a playful decorative element, as I did in here, where I'm gonna have one section be green and the other section be yellow, and there's like not a particular meaning behind it. There can be, of course, but it's more about ensuring that this looks good. As you can see here, I'm trying out different photos for this second section below the header section, but I'm not really happy with any of them. The first one felt like it's basically the same dog as I have it on the first photo, and in here I tried to make the background work with this other photo that I found, but the crop didn't really work that well when I used the remove background plugin. So I'm trying to think of a different one. And you can see I'm looking for images that actually have something yellowish in the background, because if the photo was taken in that kind of environment, it casts a shadow onto the object. So in here, it casts the shadow on this dog, and you can see that if, for example, I have a blue light across this photo, it's not going to work well with the layer, with the yellow decorative element I've created. So in here, I basically brought in this dog that was on kind of an orangish background, and it worked well with a yellow background I used in here. I'm now trying to compare and like see how this is going to work, and you can see me always checking the spacing so that I'm consistent when it comes to those things, as I really do care about consistency in design. And for some reason the style didn't work for a couple of seconds. Sometimes Figma has a small bug like that, so as you can see, visually nothing changed to this style, so I knew that something wasn't working, so I just kind of repeated the process and it worked. I'm guessing that maybe I was like disconnected for a couple of seconds or something where it didn't work. And you can see even in here, I'm trying to kind of think about what's the content that's supposed to be in this section. Why do we need it here? What is it going to communicate to the visitor? And is it something that I need to push further up, further down on this page, or can I remove it completely? So you're always kind of questioning yourself when you're designing, trying to think of like, do I need this? If yes, why? If not, why? And so on. Now, when it comes to what's going to happen in here, basically, besides the trust factor of thousands of people are using our service, you can also have a trust factor of other people selling the company and the service for you. And as you can see, I was pushing things up and down a little bit, trying to figure out how everything is working. So now I'm actually applying auto layout to elements and trying to think of the way that I want this to stretch. So it's going to be really easy for me to create a tablet version of the screen or a desktop version of the screen as I'm going to be scaling up. And I'm kind of testing it right now to see if it's working correctly or not. You can see that some elements are kind of moving around in a way that I wasn't expecting. So I'm just going back in and I'm trying to ensure that everything works as it's supposed to. In here, I flattened this shape to make it easier to control it later on. I'm pushing things to the background or to the top within all of those frames to ensure that everything's scaling correctly. And now you can see when I scale, things are actually kind of centered a little bit. There's still going to be some adjustments that you're going to have to do on larger screens, but at least you saved up on a lot of work by just double checking some of those things when it comes to auto layout, especially if someone requires from you to create this screen on like 375 width for iPhones instead of the 360. You can easily replace 360 with 375, and you're going to see how well that's going to scale if you do auto layout correctly. One thing I don't think I've done with this is actually created auto layout with all of the sections. So sometimes when I'm working on a website a lot, it's not something that I would be doing on a one pager like this, but if I'm working on a website that has a lot of sub pages, I might, and it's going to go through a lot of review phases, I might actually kind of scale it and create it from, so like each section would be its own frame. That means that if a client comes in and they say, no, actually, let's make the third section the second one, you don't have to like manually drag things around. You just kind of click on the frame and push it up by one place. So just something to keep in mind. Again, this is kind of a play project. It's based on a fake brief that helped me show you how I would approach all of these different projects and why. But I do want to share a couple of other things that I might be doing if this was a different type of project. In here, you can see that I'm also using plugins in Figma to make the process of filling up some of these elements like testimonials a little bit easier, because I can easily just place an image and add something that's going to look like a testimonial. So in here, always when I'm creating a new text, you can see me double checking, like, am I using a style? Am I using a style for text? Am I using the style for the color, to ensure that if I ever decide to make a change, it's going to be replicated with just one click and it's not going to be too hard to replace. In here, you can see that I wrote down like parent of Amy, just because the company that we envisioned in here is called Possum. So it's kind of a play on words, and you can do all of those things if you want to. It's just something that honestly clients really love. So I do try to introduce those additional elements of brand all across my design, if possible. In here, I'm trying to figure out, like, do I need this? What am I going to write in here? What happens if we don't have this info? Like, can I make it smaller? Is it going to work better? Is it going to work worse? And so on and so on. And you can see that now I've started to actually build an auto layout from here as well. And I'm going to switch this to fill container. And now I can easily make this a couple of pixels bigger. And you can see that I'm trying to be consistent with the inner spacing of this testimonial that I've built in here. Okay, so now I'll have to add the actual testimonial in here to ensure that all of those things work. And once I do that, you can see that the testimonial is actually bigger than the name of this person and then the description below. That's because you really want to stress what the person is saying. It doesn't really matter too much who this person is. It's more about the things that they're saying about your company. And I'm double checking if I remember correctly the name that we have in in here for this doggy daycare. So just writing that down, and I'm trying to figure out how to make this really scalable. Like on phones, what's going to happen if I have a bigger or a smaller testimonial? How am I going to control that? Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? Why? And so on. Okay, perfect. So now you can see that I brought the element back that's kind of created from the logo shape, and I'm using it in here as a decorative element. So again, as you're going to be designing, try to think of those couple of moments of delight that you're going to have where someone is actually going to go like, ooh, someone kind of thought about all of these elements. Someone thought about like how they're going to work, why they're going to work like that. And there's this sense of consistency that happens throughout all of this design that's subtle. It's just like a decorative shape in the background, but it gives you a sense that it's not just templated WordPress theme for a website that someone bought for like $20. It's actually something that someone has spent hours and hours of designing and thinking about. Again, you can always try to think of elements like, are they going to work with a grid? Are they not going to work with a grid? It's just something that's going to be centered. It's up to you to figure out what's going to work best. And here, since it was a really, really light element, I did want to kind of ensure that it ties it in with a title above, so that it looks kind of good. And here, as you can see, I'm going back and forth with how to position a couple of these elements that we're going to have in the photos, and I'm doing that to ensure that as I'm scrolling down, the website doesn't bore me in a sense. So I do want to add some dynamic elements in here that are going to be representing the brand well, and are also going to keep the user interested so they keep scrolling down, because we do want them to actually sign up for this. So what are some other things that the person like that might need? We had the intro section, we have our review section. Let's now ensure that they know the pricing immediately, if that's something that strategically you want for your business. When someone is exploring daycares, honestly, if it's going to be too pricey for them, there's rarely something that you can do to ensure that they're going to be willing to pay so much for it. So in here, it really made sense for us to present the prices in this project to the visitor directly. And I'm kind of thinking about what's needed in here and what I want to include in this text. And to be able to do so, I honestly just explored different pricing models that other daycares, doggy daycares have, and how do they present those. And now with that knowledge, empowered by competition insight, I am able to create transparent pricing for this company. Again, honestly, the company will already have pricing in place when they contact you and they want to work with you on their website, but some of these things needed to be improvised a little bit. And to ensure consistency, you can see that I've actually copied the same style I had above for the name of the parent, or like the dog owner, and the description, to create like a small pricing table on the phone. And this is one of the powers where working on a desktop might lead me to a completely different direction, and that direction might not work well on a phone. So on desktops, it's really easy to solve this problem by creating a table, and the table is going to work. But in here, I actually had to kind of think of a way to present the data that I wanted to show in a way that's going to be easy to understand. So it's more of a list view than it is a table view. And you can see that in here, I have full day, the price, half day, the price, and like I can add as many options as I can with the auto layout that I've created, and easily either like envision what's going to be inside, copy it from a competitor, or if you already have content ready from your client, you can easily just place it inside. And now in here you can see that I'm adding in different options for the pricing, putting in the prices as they're needed, and I'm slowly finishing off this section. Now, as I'm going to move on to a section below this one, what do you think it's going to be? Why? What would you add? Is there something that you would like to still explore on one of the top sections? Why would you want to explore that? Kind of think about all of the things that you might want to do, and kind of note it down as you're looking at this video, because you're going to be tasked with creating the next screen from here. And doing this ahead of time is going to help you actually create a better product. So as you're going through this video, just think of like what you would do, what would you do differently, why you would do it differently, and so on. One thing that is always good with pricing is ensuring that one of them stands out a little bit more. You can do it just by pushing it on the top or the bottom, because first and last item are the items that people most often remember. Or you can place it somewhere else and kind of have a label like this that says like most popular. That's going to make this pricing stand out a lot. Now, I'm still kind of trying to figure out what's the best way to present this. I'm not 100% sold on the primary 400 style, but to make this stand out even more, I am exploring of different ways of how to use the strokes of this element to create something that's going to be interesting. So you can see that definitely out of these 6 options, the 5th one stands out the most, and that's because of the way it styles. All of the other ones are styled the same. This one is styled differently, so this one is going to stand out and people are going to notice it out of all of the other ones. Okay, so honestly, hopefully you've thought about what's going to happen in the section below. What I've decided to do is actually switch on to like some benefits that are going to complete the sale in here, in a sense. Like, what is something that I still need to know to ensure that this is going to be the daycare that I'm going to choose? And what I decided to do is create a section that's going to be like, what makes us best? What makes us different? And try to think of a couple of selling points or like a couple of attributes that really make this company different. So, for example, maybe they have trusted and trained professionals that are going to work with your dog. It's not just someone who loves pets and dogs, it's someone who is actually kind of certified in that area. So what's going to be another thing? Maybe, this company can have a mobile app and it's going to allow you to quickly communicate with the team. It allows you to quickly reschedule things. It allows you to maybe check up on your pet while you're working and they're at the daycare. And that's going to be a massive selling point, I'm guessing, especially for people in like California who kind of, compared to the rest of the world, you're always like looking at parts of the world that are maybe more technologically advanced. We know that there's Silicon Valley in there. There's a lot of people who are depending on their phones for work. So if you can have an app for them that allows them to quickly check up on their pets, that's going to be amazing. And like, let's just do that. And that's going to be our big selling point for the company. And in here, the third selling point, again, as I was designing, I was also trying to think of the content and I was trying to make it as realistic as possible. But a lot of those things would actually be connected to your client, since this is a fake client that I've just created for the demo purposes of this course. And I did purposely go with the doggy daycare because it's not something that you're going to see often, and it allowed me to create all of the different products that we're going to go over in other videos. But what you can see in here is that that's taking a little bit of my time as I'm designing. I'm also trying to think of everything that's going to be in here, and you can see auto layout saving me in here, and kind of just with a couple of clicks ensuring that the elements that I'm going to place are going to look good and scale good, especially if I change the text. And I'm kind of rotating things around to keep them interesting. I'm trying to think of like, do I need to change colors in here? Is it going to work better or worse? And the selling points that I've added in here are kind of representative of what I would love to see. Again, even if you're just drafting this for your client, you can still go inside and kind of change it. If they say like, no, we don't have an amazing mobile app, but in here we could say that we have like, we exist for more than 10 years, so we're kind of the well-known player in this area. That's going to be a great thing. You can see in here me combining a couple of the styles that we've created, and I know that this is called error, and that's going to be perfect, exactly what we need for like a mobile app or a web app. But in here you can also use the red as some kind of a playful element, since this is a website and it's not something that necessarily communicates a warning or an error. So you can see me now create a couple of frames out of these illustrative elements, and I'm going to scale those as we move on to tablet and desktop design. So we're really close to the end of this website. You can see that it has like distinctive sections, and all of those sections are communicating different things. So one of the final things that I'm going to do is kind of put a lot of focus on creating a form in here that's going to make me want to sign up. And you can see that as I'm designing, I do go back and forth in a couple of sections. I'm trying to, again, look at everything that I've designed so far. I'm looking at the brief. I'm kind of going over it, seeing if there's something missing. What else can I do to make this website really communicate the story well? And I think I've done a good job so far, so I just decided to kind of continue and actually put the form in here. So get in touch today, maybe learn about the availability or something. And I'm trying to think of a copy that's not gonna push people away. Right now this is the first draft, so you can see like we're not always open. Maybe that's not the best way to phrase it. I'll kind of rethink that as I'm moving forward with the design, but it's good enough. At least I know that there is a paragraph that I need to have in here, and I have an idea of what I want to communicate. Even though it's not phrased perfectly, it's still going to help me a lot when I'm kind of rethinking this section later on. And one thing that I extremely want to stress to you is when you're designing, I know that in this couple of videos that you purchased as an add-on, there's like one and done approach where I would create this and I'm kind of done. But just remember that you might design this, you might show it to your client, you might get feedback from them on the changes that they would like to see. Once they're happy, you ideally will test this with a couple of people from California who have pets, who are interested in doggy daycare, to see how they react to the website. Is there any information that is still missing? What would they like to know, and why and when? And kind of use all of that data and information to improve upon your design. So even though for the purpose of this course, I'm just showing you how I would design things using Figma, so you can really see me moving things around, kind of building them from scratch in this entire add-on, but you still don't see the full design process in a sense. You're just seeing like the ideal steps that happen once you're really close to completing a project, because that's the part where you're going to be working in Figma. So before this, you would do a user research, you would conduct a stakeholder research and competitive research to understand the market that you're designing for. You would wireframe things, kind of test around some ideas, plan the content, and then actually move into the UI design phase. So just keep that in mind. Even though you're kind of following this video, you're learning hopefully a lot from me and things that I'm thinking about, why I'm thinking them, what is something that I would suggest as you're going through a process like this. It doesn't mean that that's a one and done thing that you need to do as a designer. There's so much more work that needs to go into building a website like this. even though websites are usually a little bit simpler projects, there's still so much work that would happen before we even got to this stage. But again, this is not like an advanced UX UI full-on course. It's Figma, but told from a perspective of a designer who has a lot of experience, so that hopefully I can share with you and you can use to become better and quicker at what you're doing. And you can see me, again, testing some things around to see if the scaling is going to happen the way that I envision it to do. One of the last things that we need to do is what? That's correct. We need to think of a footer. A footer is a crucial element on any kind of website, and it allows you to quickly navigate to things that you wouldn't previously be able to navigate to. So you can see that I've grabbed the logo. I'm trying to think of like how I'm going to position it, why, how that's going to happen, how that's going to look. I moved it to grayscale just because I don't want it to dominate a lot, and I've envisioned the header on the top to be sticky. So that means that it's gonna basically stay persistent and available to anyone who's visiting this website. So I don't need two logos kind of fighting over each other on which one the user needs to click on to get home. And here you can see contact, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, for example, just a couple of ways to add some relevant links to this footer. It's really simple just because the whole website is really simple. The main point is for you to be able to kind of learn about this company, sign up, and kind of learn about the availability to know if you are actually able to sign up your dog for this daycare. So I'm pasting in the copyright symbol, and I'm just kind of creating something that I can use for this project. And you can see I've created a really, really simple footer. And as I'm scaling this up, you notice that some things aren't scaling and moving as I envision it. So I fix it, and I've added a lot more spacing into the contact below to ensure that everything is tappable. And here, what I'm trying to show you is that as you're designing, you're gonna have to design a couple of states as well. So like, even though the website on the left side is almost done, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, and especially in here, because I do want to show how a close or an open menu would look like. So I'll switch this icon to a close one. I've also expanded this section so that I can add in the navigational elements, and all of those elements are going to be representing the sections on this website. So there's a couple of approaches. If you have like a long form website with sections, and that's the only thing that you can navigate to, it's okay to have those sections represented in your menu. While a different approach is having multiple web pages on a website. At that point, you would actually be representing the inner pages of this website in your navigation, not the sections on the home page. So depending on how big your project is, you're going to have a different idea behind the navigation that you're building. I'm trying to look up like what sections I actually have below. So yeah, in here we have the pricing, and after pricing we also have the availability check. So all of those things are now in here. I've created an auto layout from it, and I can easily like add and remove sections later on. If a client comes in and they say like, no, we need another section, I can just add one line of text to this element that I've created. In here I'm naming this like home default, home menu, open, and I'll also want to kind of present how I envision this looking when someone taps it. Like, do I want something to become darker or lighter? I actually do want to have a screen over this. So I'm just going to place an element like that. And I am going to use an overlay to ensure that it puts more focus on the fact that someone tapped on the menu. And yeah, that should be it. Placing it above all of those elements. And if you're ever unsure what's happening and why, you can always use the left sidebar with a list of all of your layers to see and double check on the order, because sometimes some things are not working as you would expect them to. And now finally, if you think about like what's still needed for this website to be at least closer to being done, is states for the checking of availability. So as you know, you're not just gonna leave the developer guessing of how that's gonna look like if someone is filling in, how does that look like if someone is just writing down what's there. So you can see I've actually shown the example of someone filling in the email form, and I am going to show the sending process, which means that someone left the input field, so I need to put it as active, and there's no that indicator of writing anymore. And I do need to switch this button to an icon only, and you can see that the icon is not positioned as I would expect it to be. So I'm gonna have a spinner in here, and now it's reset and it's working. And then finally, after sending is done, I just need to go in here and show how it looks like when it's sent. That means that the user actually was notified about their process going over correctly. Again, you might do an error state in here, you might do all of those things, depending on how well you've communicated with the developer and what they've done and why. But in here, I'm just trying to make a simple toast message that says that everything was done successfully. We received your availability check request, so the user knows that everything went well. I've created an auto layout from it, and I'm trying to figure out what's the best background that I can use for this toast message. Something that's not that well supported on the web, so you need to check it with your developer first, is like using some of these iOS effects that I've done right now. Some developers are able to, especially the more experienced one, are able to kind of hack things around and make it work. Some are not, and that's completely fine. Like sometimes it's not worth the fight to actually include something like that. I do like to kind of play around with it, just because all of the other elements that I've used on this page were so bubbly and playful. I thought that it might be better if I made it a little bit more rounded like that. And I'm still kind of debating, do I need a shadow or do I not need a shadow? I feel like it adds to the feeling of this actually being over everything else. And in here, I'm switching this to success icon, and this feels good, like it's gonna work. This is even shorter, and like, is it clear enough? And you're always debating those things as you're designing. So yeah, that's it when it comes to the first step of this process. Now let's move on to the tablet video.